A Mormon missionary trades his faith for the high life, but when he can no longer sustain it, he takes matters into his own hands. On November 29, 2004, Jason Derek Brown gunned down an armored car guard as he was making his rounds. Keith Palomares was only 24 years old. Brown went on the run and hasn't been heard from since. He was placed on the FBI's top 10 list on December 8, 2007. But it's been 20 years. The FBI says Brown has outlived his threat level and was taken off of the list as of December 2022. Very few people have outlived their top 10 status, but Jason Derek Brown has. What happened to this murderous missionary? Is he still a threat? What will happen the next time he needs money? But tonight we're talking about an FBI most wanted. He used to be on the top 10 list. We're talking about the murderous missionary. The reason why I call him that is that's what I labeled my blog. I wrote about this man about 6 years ago on my blog. He was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list at the time. His name is Jason Derek Brown. Now, Jason Derek Brown at one time was a good practicing Mormon who went on his missionary trips in France, I believe. And he was a good practicing Mormon. And then something happened, something changed within him. And we'll find out that some of his good Mormon facade may have been just a facade, but we'll find out how can someone go from being a Mormon missionary to murdering someone in cold blood for cash. So this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. We are talking about one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives. His name is Jason Derek Brown. Now, Jason Derek Brown, just to give you a quick rundown, I got to get my notes here together. I turned the page on my notes and then it's like, where did it go? Hang on. So, Jason Derek Brown, on November 29th of 2004 in Phoenix, Arizona, Jason Derek Brown waits in ambush for an armored car guard that he had been watching for a while. Now, Jason Derek Brown was in a hooded sweatshirt just around the corner from a place that he had watched this armored car stop many times. Now, in this armored car, you have the driver who is not allowed to get out of the vehicle no matter what kind of emergency. And then you have what's called a jumper. Now, the jumper was Mr. Palomares. Now, Mr. Palomares had been on the job for a while. He knew his job well. He did a good job. He was highly trained. He was actually training the driver at that time. So Mr. Palomares got out at this little strip mall. Now, at this local mall, there was a movie theater. Now, this take was going to be larger than normal because this was just after the Thanksgiving holiday. So the movie theater should have up to $100,000 cash that they were going to have to transport to the bank through this armored car service. Now, Mr. Brown knew this. He had staked this location out. He had practiced with his gun. He had bought a gun. He had taken classes to use the gun. You will find out that he had planned this out drastically, and he literally stalked and hunted Mr. Palomares. Now, there was no connection to this Mr. Palomares. He had no, there was no bad blood between them. He did not know him from Adam. Mr. Brown wasn't even from Phoenix. He was just there to do this job. And unfortunately, Palomares would end up dead by the end of it. Now, Palomares had to get out of the armored vehicle and he had to walk across the mall's courtyard. He also had to walk around this big ticket kiosk, this big booth in the middle of the courtyard to get behind that to go into the store, into the building to get the receipts for the weekend. So he had about 100 yards, I believe they said, that he had to walk. So it's pretty long distance for someone who's trying to guard money. It was also kind of a little bit of a maze to get around there. Well, just around the corner of the mall, there was also some little pathways and alleyways in amongst the buildings of the mall and in behind the building that led off into another district in town where, a lot of housing districts. So what happened was you seen Jason Derek Brown. So Jason Brown, he was standing in a hoodie just around the corner there, just in the alley. Now, he also had a bicycle there at the other end of the alley waiting on him. So he had this all planned. He waited until Palomares went into the building, and he waited till he come out. Now, Palomares always come to this place just about 10 o'clock in the morning. Now, at the mall at 10 o'clock in the morning after a holiday weekend, it wasn't very busy, but there was a few people around. Now, Derek wasn't acting suspicious. He didn't draw attention to himself. People noticed him afterwards, but he didn't look suspicious. So he was just hanging out there around the corner. But he had a murderous intention. He was there to kill somebody and take their money. Now, we know that he was ready to kill somebody because of the way he attacked Mr. Palomares. He didn't say a word, but the moment Mr. Palomares came around that ticket kiosk, he came from around the corner and he shot 6 high velocity rounds directly into Mr. Palomares' head. Now, 5 hit, 1 miss. So he had 6 rounds. He took the bag. He ran down the alleyway to his bicycle. He rode the bicycle into that housing development and got into his silver BMW. And by the time the police were on the scene, Jason Derek Brown was actually in his hotel room and far away. Nobody knew what he had done. Nobody knew who he was. And at that point, he hadn't made any mistakes. He got away on a bicycle. He got away through the alley. So by the time the police got there, there was no getaway vehicle for anyone to describe other than a bicycle. So for the next couple hours, every man on a bicycle was stopped by the police. Now, this was an all-out war trying to find this man because he had robbed an armored car, which is also a federal offense. So he had the FBI and the Phoenix PD after him. So that gives you kind of a basic overview of the case, but we are going to talk about something even more disturbing. This is since 2004, and even though this man has been on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, he has not been found. He has not been found. They have no viable leads on this. This case is cold, even though they're getting leads left and right. None of them pan out. And then what sounds disturbing, but we'll kind of explain, as of October, I believe it was, or November of 2022, so 2 years ago, they actually removed him from the top 10 FBI's most wanted. Now, that only happens if you're dead or if you're incarcerated. And somehow Jason Brown has outlived his time on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. And now that sounds disturbing, but we'll get to discussing that and see what that actually means. So, Cricket, we'll start with you. When you looked at this case, what did you think about this? What was your first opinion when you read about this guy? Because he didn't seem to have any major criminal record. He seemed to be from a high-end, higher class, higher income bracket type family. He has the beach boy look. He didn't seem to fit the mold. What do you think when you read this?
Well, he was kind of born with a silver spoon in a way, because his father, and he learned a lot of this from his father, even he maybe not realizing it because he was young, but his father would take him on odd vacations, like to Mexico, to pick up money, so he learned a lot from his father. And his father actually went missing, off grid, never been seen, 10 years prior to his son doing this.
Right. So when police look at him, though, he doesn't fit the mold.
No, he doesn't.
He had a little bit of petty crime. He was a con man, and then he went to murder. And so from just the basic first glance at this, like, how can a man do this? He was a Mormon missionary. He was clean cut. He had plenty of money. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. How could he go there? Well, we're going to dive into that, and we'll talk about his father and what kind of influence that had. But what did you find interesting about this case when the first time you looked into it? What was the one thing that stood out to you?
That he changed after coming back from the missionary. And I am not saying that it was a cult or anything like that, but it was the Church of Latter-day Saints. And when he came back, he had that, I want that greed, that what money can give. And that's
Well,
when you really,
I don't think that's the case, Cricket. I'm going to stop you because you it wasn't that when he came back from the missionary trip when he changed. If you listen to the documentary that I listened to that interviews his sister,
oh
you'll
yeah, I
find
did see
out that
that one.
he didn't change after the missionary trip. He changed after his divorce.
Oh
See,
yeah,
his
'cause that's,
wife
yep.
divorced him and he got addicted to drugs and his wife divorced him, and after that is when he started changing. So I don't think it was the missionary trip that caused him the issue. It was more along the lines of
Yeah, that was the big
his
catalyst.
childhood programming, but he was also he was falling off the wagon, and he started getting addicted to this particular drug, and then he was it PHP, is that what it was? Tammy, did you write down that? I know you're good for
Well,
the details.
I tried to write it down, but it was kind of blurred right on that
Yeah.
point.
I think it said
Yeah.
PHP is what it was, but
I
he
think
got addicted to that.
stopped caring and was like, I'm just going to use people, get what I want.
Mhm.
After
Well, see,
the wife.
yeah,
He
when
didn't
his
care.
wife left him, it was like, you'll find out when we talk about his childhood, you'll find out that the whole religious thing was more of a facade. And you'll find out that although people go to church their entire lives, not all of them fully integrate into the religious experience. And you'll find out that even though someone's gone to church all their life and been a missionary at one time, they can put 5 bullets in your head. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I don't think it was necessarily a cult. I think it was more along the lines of he was starting to fall off the wagon. And he got addicted to drugs. His wife left him because he was addicted to drugs and because of some other problems, I am assuming. And then after his wife left, you'll find out that his sister said in this documentary, and she wrote a book about this, how the Jason she knew was just kind of gone after that. And they would have moments of happy and they would do things and everything, but there was just difference in him. There was not the fun-loving Jason she grew up with, just wasn't there. And so I believe it was more along the lines of losing his wife and because see, up until that point, he was still trying to hang on to the clean-cut facade. He was still trying to hang on to the whole perfect white picket fence facade. And after that, he went off the deep end. It was all about the expensive toys and the boats and the cars and the girls and the partying and the drugs and he wanted to be the life of the party and he wanted to live it up as much as he could. And so when you get into that mode, you'll find that when you talk about his sister comes on and his sister really explains a lot of things. And you have to commend the sister, because at first the sister put her foot down and she wasn't going to help the FBI. And then over time, she realized that she's going to have to help. And so she started opening up to the FBI agent over time, and you'll find out that this he looks like a beach boy, and Cricket, you said it, and then I heard it on a documentary after. He looks like Sean Penn. He absolutely looks like Sean Penn. I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear what they said about that?
I did. This is Jason Derek Brown, and they said for years on this documentary that I watched, or as a podcast, they had the FBI agent that spent his whole career chasing him, and his sister had Jason's sister, and so they had a really interesting dynamic conversation between the two of them. And this picture, they actually explained what that picture is. Tammy, since you know the story, would you like to tell people what this picture is?
I'm not sure if it's the same one you're going to say, but isn't it the one that he had his picture taken in when he bought the handgun?
Mm-hmm.
And they thought it was kind of interesting because he knew what he was going to do in that picture.
Yeah.
And that was when he purchased his gun, and you have to have your picture taken there in that state.
He was in Salt Lake City, Utah, and he drove up into Salt Lake City, Utah, in this one area in his silver BMW. So he kind of stood out because he was this California beach boy kind of guy in a silver BMW in the middle of Salt Lake City, Utah. And so he kind of stood out, and so people noticed him. He goes into this gun shop. He wants to take his gun safety courses and things, and he decides he needs to take it then. Most of the time people sign up and come in later, but he had to have it then. So he took this course, and the Lance, I can't remember what his last name was, the FBI guy, he said that the gun shop owner noticed that he wasn't very proficient at the gun, and so when he finally did pass the thing and he finally did get a gun, he wanted to give him a smaller, easier to handle gun, and Derek demanded a 45 Glock, and he wanted the heaviest, most proficient ammo there was. And so he got armor piercing rounds, and at that time the kind that he got, it was kind of high-end bullets. Most people didn't buy it, so it's kind of unique and odd. So you got this man who doesn't know how to handle weapons. He goes and gets a little bit of training. He gets the biggest gun, the most high-powered gun and the most high-powered ammunition he can. And then they say, well, you have to take your picture in this state, and this is the photo that he takes. Now, if you look at this man, he's smiling. He's happy. He's got this look in his eye that he's having a good time. And in this picture, this is the picture that the gun shop owner took. This is a picture of a man that's getting ready to hunt and stalk and kill a human being for cash. Now, if that doesn't show you a picture of psychosis, I don't know what does. What do you think about that, Cricket? I didn't know if you even heard that, because I wasn't sure if you actually got to watch that episode that I sent you.
Yeah, I watched like everything. And what I found interesting is he's a smart man, obviously. He has conned so many people. Mm-hmm. But yet some of the things that he did that led right to him up until he got that call that he was on the news, and then he went gone.
Right. Well, see, the thing is he was really smart, but he's also very arrogant.
Exactly.
He didn't think that they would catch him, and he had all of this planned out. And I will tell you, he is very arrogant, but you have to also realize there was only one mistake in this plan, and that's what I find so scary. He had wiped down that bicycle. Okay. He wiped down the bicycle. He got a bicycle, a 10-speed bicycle that looked like everybody else's. He didn't get, one of those $1,000 bicycles. He got a standard BMX bicycle. Okay. He got a standard bicycle that everybody could have, which is ingenious. Then he parks it in a place that he can cut through alleys and get halfway. He's basically to get where he had to get by the road. You would have to drive a ways to get there, but he cut through the alleys, and all of a sudden he's in a housing development. Okay. In that housing development, he stores that in a bush, and he literally gets in his BMW and he drives off, because nobody's looking for a BMW. They're looking for a bicycle. Okay. So there's only one mistake he does. They said they found one fingerprint on that bike. He had wiped it down. So if it wasn't for that one fingerprint on that bike, they would have never found him. He would have never had to run. Nothing would happen. So in one instance, you think, okay, he really thought this out. He was smart. And then you think, well, no, he just led him right to him. But if you look at it and think, if it wasn't for that one fingerprint on that bicycle, they wouldn't have caught him. They would have not found who this was, because you'll find out he was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list for years. And they said on America's Most Wanted that he brought in more leads than anybody else. People were constantly bringing in tips. Well, it's because he looks like a standard American beach boy. Everybody that somewhat muscular, looks like they some kind of surfer dude, blonde-headed, blue or green-eyed, or somewhere in between, as long as they were under 6 foot, they were getting called in. And so he got hundreds and thousands of tips that were absolutely not him. They on that thing, you'll see that it even said that they were getting a lot of Sean Penn body doubles called in on. So they actually brought in for questioning a few Sean Penn body doubles because this guy resembles Sean Penn. And they're like, we didn't bring in Sean Penn, but we did get a few body doubles that got called, some tips got called on. And I thought, oh my gosh, because Cricket told me he looked like Sean Penn. I was like, he does look like Sean Penn. But so I was like, you and I had said that when we talked, and then turned around and there it goes. I was like, Cricket's gonna like that one. But here's the thing: when it come down to it, there's an arrogance. We're gonna talk about his dad, and his dad was a diagnosed, not only a narcissist, but he was also a sociopath. Okay, so he was a sociopath, is what they called him on that on the documentary that I was listening to. I have a tendency, because I've studied the difference between sociopath and psychopath. I need to know more about the father's childhood. I'm tending to think that the father was a psychopath, and then you're looking at the son, Jason, is a sociopath. Because when you're looking between the two, you're trying to distinguish between the two, you will find out that a psychopath is more hardwiring of the brain. They're born that way. And that's the way they are. It's more of a hardwiring. You can see it in the structure of the brain and the way the brain works. A sociopath is something that is more created during childhood and their raising. So if I could look at the childhood of the father, I could tell if he was truly a psychopath or a sociopath. Everyone wants to label him a sociopath or a psychopath, but there's actually a difference. Now, when it comes to Jason and we start looking into his childhood, he was socially programmed by his father in his childhood to think this way, to behave this way, to do. So he was more of a created. So when it's kind of nature versus nurture, you're talking a sociopath is something that is more created by the environment you're raised in. Okay. So that's the difference between the two, just, real roughly. But I tend to think that the father may have actually been a pure, full, psychopath, and the son would be better classed as a sociopath. Okay. So just to kind of give you guys a difference there to distinguish between the two, because people use those interchangeably, and that's not actually accurate. There's two whole different things there.
Yeah.
So Jason,
and one thing I found
to be sociopath. Go ahead.
One thing I found really interesting about Jason is, now while he was on the run, he got in an accident, and he actually paid. He gave the guy all his information, and he paid for the damages and an extra $50 for the kid so he could get something for himself. So he's not
really an accident.
It wasn't.
He was shooting in the desert because he wasn't good with his gun.
That's the guy he told. But again, he wanted him to get it fixed, and he don't take the bullet out. Leave the bullet in there. But
you could just cover that bullet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, what Cricket's talking about is we're talking about a man that's planning to kill somebody. Because if you get those armor-piercing rounds and you're planning on shooting at an armored guard, an armor-piercing round is going to go through their armor, and you know it. So he was planning on killing the man and taking the cash. So you can't say, well, I just shot him and he bled out and it was an accident. I didn't actually want to kill him. I just wanted to wound him. If you're getting armor-piercing rounds, you are planning on killing somebody who is armored. So you can't use that. Someone asked, can you be both? No, you're either a psychopath or you're a sociopath. That's two different things.
Exactly.
So what Cricket's talking about is he went out to the desert and was going to practice shooting his 45. And he put a paper plate up in a bush in the desert. Now, we're talking the desert, it's flat. out there, and there's no hills, there's nothing to be a backstop for your ammunition. So you're out there shooting, you need to make sure you have something substantial to catch that bullet. Well, this is a very novice gunman. Okay, he puts a paper plate in a bush and he's shooting, and 200 yards away there's a man and his son riding four-wheelers, and he hears the sound of bullets. Now when you're you know what it sounds like when you hear a gunshot, but there is something more disturbing to hear, and that is that real sinister it's kind of a whiz and zing, kind of a whistle sound. That's them coming through the air, cutting through the air near you. Okay, when you hear that, that is a panic mode right there, because you can hear it. You hear ammunition if it's come close to you. Now, he heard this. He grabbed his son. They took shelter behind his truck, and the truck that they were taking shelter behind actually took around to the door. And so he was yelling, "Stop shooting. Those people here, stop." He was yelling at the top of his lungs. The shooting stopped. Jason didn't act like he heard him yelling, but he was turned around, took the plate down, and started to put his gun and everything in the trunk of his BMW. The man rode the ATV up to him and says, "Hey, you almost shot me and my son," and told him about it. And Jason was sympathetic, apologized profusely. He wrote his name and his address and everything down on one of his paper plate targets that he had, gave it to the man, told the man, said, "Oh, you probably don't even need to take that out, just cover that up, but I'll pay for whatever it is." Okay, well, the man actually he said, "Here's my phone number." So of course, he didn't give his real address. He did give his real name, and he did give his real phone number. So what happened was, after he'd already murdered this man, and he was actually on the run, he had actually figured out the FBI was after him, and he was on the run. He still mailed that man a cashier's check for the exact amount that the man had called him. This is what was really disturbing. Within just a few moments or an hour or so after Jason had shot this man in cold blood and stole his cash, which only turned out to be $56,000. He shot this man 5 times and stole the cash. Within, I can't remember if it said 30 minutes or an hour. So within a real short amount of time, this man, that got his truck shot at, not knowing what he was getting into, actually called and talked to Jason and said, "Hey, I got the price quote to fix my truck, and it's this amount of money." And he says, "That's fine, great." He said, I will mail you a cashier's check. I'll take care of it, no problem. Okay. And he said the guy was calm and acted upbeat and happy, didn't sound stressed, didn't sound panicked, didn't sound hateful or rude. He sounded calm and peaceful and upbeat. And he had just murdered a man and was, talking to somebody like, he was ordering lunch. Okay. So when you have that level of psychosis, to where you can talk to somebody like you're ordering dinner, and you just murdered a human being, that there's a level of psychosis there. So this just kind of goes and shows you the two sides of a sociopath. They're going to give you things to make you feel like they are well-meaning, empathetic human beings, and they are not empathetic. They do not have that connection in their brains to show empathy. But this man did send, when he had the cashier's check, he sent, this is back before Toys R Us went out of business, he sent a $50 gift card for the man's little boy and said, "I'm sorry for frightening your little boy. Hopefully he can get something nice." So he paid for the man's truck. He also paid, gave a little gift to the boy for scaring him. So you think, how can someone just brutally murder somebody and then do something like that? That is feigned empathy right there. Okay. Yeah. So you want to understand that sociopath, that he didn't care about that little boy. He didn't care about that little boy. And if that little boy's dad had $100,000 cash on him, he would have just as easily shot him in the head and took the money. So it's not that he cared about the little boy. Okay, that is the way a sociopath works. They don't have those connections, but they have learned that if they show those things, it endears them to the person that they may victimize next. And so that is one of those enigmas around psychopathy that people don't understand. You're like, how could he seem so nice, or how can she seem so pleasant, and do such this and this and this? Well, that's the way it is. Their brain is hardwired different, and they have learned to profane empathy, but they don't actually feel it or have it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, mainly the only reason that I was actually shocked that he sent the check. But when he did, I was like, okay, that's to cover the bull, but you don't want that bullet to be found.
Right. Well, to me, it is more along the lines of that man. If I can keep that man happy, he won't put
Yep.
two and two together of who I am. But you're also thinking about something else. At this point, this man is running free because he doesn't think they're going to catch him. And the law enforcement made one fatal mistake. So within just a short time, they find the fingerprint. They know who they're looking for. They start running his credit cards. He goes back to California. He only deposits $2,000 at a time into his checking account. He's being smart with that. So they're following him around the country as he's moving around, going about his life. Everything's fine. Well, the FBI wanted to say, okay, hang on to it. We're getting this little bit of evidence. We're going to go get him. Let's go ahead and arrest him. Let's bag him, tag him, take him in. Let's do this. And then we will make the announcement to the public. But the law enforcement in Phoenix, they got antsy, and they're like, no, the public's really scared. They think we got this terrorist. We've got to let them know that we've got a suspect. And so, unfortunately, the Phoenix PD won that argument, and so they went ahead and did a press release. Well, by this point, he was back in California, staying with his sister. Now, nobody really knew where he was because the sister had just moved there. This was a location neither one of them lived before, so nobody knew them. That would have been a good place to hide for a while. Well, as soon as it went out over media, somebody called Jason and said, hey, did you know you're on the news? He said his sister said that she didn't know what was going on. It was just another day. He made some just idle excuse that he was going to go. He'd be back. He'd see her, in a few weeks or whatever.
Didn't he say, I'll see you someday?
He said, I'll see you soon. And so he didn't act like it was going to be a long time. It was just casual. He packed his bag and he left her house. And then she sees it on the news, and all heck breaks loose. So when it comes down to it, you see that he's not even panicked at that point. He's just like, okay, I'm going to go from here to there. Okay. So when you make that announcement, the FBI actually was right. They should have had him in custody before they made the announcement. But then on the other hand, the local PD, they knew that their public was freaking out. They didn't know what kind of, terrorists they were dealing with. And so they wanted to try to calm the public. But in that case, even they, after all these years, they knew who their suspect was. They knew his activity. They knew where he was. And if they had held that ace closer to their chest without revealing it quite right then, they would have had him. Instead, we've got all of these years later, we got 20 years, and this man's still on the run, and they have literally no idea where he is now, because he's going to take off, and he's going to do a series of things that confused law enforcement, and then he's going to drop off the map. And we're going to find out that these key things are things that his father taught him in childhood. Okay, so we're gonna kind of dive into that. But before I get there, I'm going to do this one little ad for our coffee. Make sure and check out our coffee. If you buy a bag of Bones coffee using my affiliate link, it helps us make more videos. I appreciate it. I want to show you this bag for Halloween. They did hazelnut instead of hazelnut. They did hazelnut. Make sure and check out Bones coffee. It's all kinds of fun in a bag. And you can get all kinds of different flavors. You can do ground, or you can do coffee beans. I like to do it warm in the mornings, and then I do iced coffee in the afternoons. So make sure and check out Bones coffee, because that helps me help you. So I don't ever ask victims' family members for anything. I pay my own way. I do what I can with what income I have. My income comes from affiliate links and my books. So check out my coffee, and that'll help me help more families. Okay, jumping right back into it. Tammy, what do you think of all this? I know you have something to say. You get quiet, and I'm like, I have to remember to call on Tammy, because Cricket will interrupt me. Tammy has a hard time with it. So Tammy, say something while I get a drink.
Okay, I've been wanting to say something ever since the fingerprint.
Okay, go ahead. Say, Tammy.
No, I had the same thought as you did. That one fingerprint is, what got him caught. Mm-hmm. Did he actually have time to go and wipe the bicycle down? And,
that's what they said. They said it had been wiped. So what I think is he probably may have had gloves or something, and he, maybe he touched the bike before he put his gloves on, or after he took them off and didn't think about it. You know what I mean? But they literally said the bike looked like it had been wiped, and they only found one fingerprint on the whole bike.
Because I think that's pretty amazing, just to leave one fingerprint on the bike.
That tells me he probably touched the bike before he put his gloves on, or after, without thinking.
But even before that, I think before you commit the crime, you're probably gonna touch it somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it was me, I'd wipe down everything.
Right. Right. And see, that was the plan. They said it looked like it had been wiped, and they only found one fingerprint. And so to me, he did have the plan out, and he, just the fact that he got away on a bicycle. Who does that? Who robs somebody, kills somebody, and gets away on a bicycle? You know what I mean? The way he had it laid out, you can't drive a car down those alleys. And if he ran down those alleyways, it would take him twice as long. It would also exert a whole lot more energy. So what he did was he had a 10-speed bike set up against the wall, and he had it set there right at the corner of the building, to where it was out of view, but it was right there, a quick jog to the bike, and then he could get all the way in and around those buildings through the alleyways. And he's all the way over in a housing development before the police they said he was, according to, after they figured out who he was and they started tracking his stuff, it looked like he was already back at the hotel before the police got on the scene. So that is a lot of planning, that is a lot and well executed. He was also kind of a fitness buff, so he was in good shape. So, he could ride that bike and ride it hard and ride it fast and be able to still do everything he needed to do and get in the car and get out,
And one thing I find interesting too is, while he was on the run, he sent 2 packages, 2 different times, but to his brother, mm-hmm. with items in. Mm-hmm. And one was a gun, but it wasn't the gun used. It was his father's gun.
His brother.
Yeah. And,
he's like, okay, by the way, I stole this. Here, have it back.
Yeah. So I think he sent one from California and another package from Oregon. And he also gave his brother the silver car.
He didn't give his brother the silver car.
No,
his brother
told him to go.
Silver car was
right.
And moved
right.
it.
And he didn't only move it. He had the whole thing redone, like
detailed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he had it detailed.
Yeah.
And then he stashed it down the road from his house so he could keep an eye on it. So it was like here's the thing. We're going to find out that Derek had a very strategic plan. And so we're going to pause on Jason. I keep calling him Derek. Derek is his name. I'm going to pause on Jason, and we're going to revert back a decade. Okay. 10 years before this, we're talking about his father. Now, his father's name was David John. So David Brown. Okay. David Brown was a con man. David Brown was a criminal. They believe he had ties to different types of organized crime. They're not sure. They can't put anything officially on him. But his daughter talks about all of these things that they were taught to do. Now, one thing you'll find when Jason had a Cadillac SUV. Okay, he had a Cadillac SUV. And that Cadillac SUV would eventually be found after a wild goose chase to the southern border. It was found closer to the northern border. You'll find that it was in the Portland, Oregon airport. Okay. But it was very key. Their dad had taught them that if you have a stolen car, you can hide it for up to 30 days in a long-term parking at an airport before anyone notices. And they said the best thing to do to make it look like it's been there a while, to make it, to make it fit into all these things, they said break a window. Now, if you have to have a level of cunning to realize that, okay, I'm going to think this all the way through. I'm going to take a stolen car. I'm going to bust a window out of it so it looks stolen. I am going to take it and I'm going to put it in a specific long-term parking at this airport. And I know I can leave it there 30 days before anyone will find it. Okay. So this is where his Cadillac SUV was found in the Portland, Oregon parking lot in the long-term parking with the windows busted out of it. Okay. But he had stepped it up when he found out the FBI was following him. He left his sister's house all nice and calm. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. No big deal. He immediately crushed his phone. He also tore the OnStar GPS tracking system out of his Cadillac SUV. So when they found that they finally found that vehicle in this long-term parking lot with the windows busted out, when they actually found that, the GPS system had been ripped out. The OnStar GPS system had been ripped out of the vehicle. And his phone they never found. They also never found the 45. They never found it, and so you understand that he had this level, and his sister would tell in this documentary, that's the things their dad taught them. They would go down south to different places, and they would go on these vacations, and then all of a sudden when they got home, daddy had a whole bunch of cash. Nobody really knew what he was doing down there. Nobody really knew how he come back with money, whether it was drugs, whether it was money laundering, whether it was prostitution. Nobody knew what he was doing down there, but he would come back with boatloads of cash. Okay. And this was common. They were taught never to trust to law enforcement, never trust the FBI, never work with the FBI, and then we're going to revert back. So this is the way these children are raised. Okay. They're raised. And she said he was very violent towards Jason. He said Jason, It was almost like he saw himself in Jason and he thought he could beat the devil out of Jason. And so Jason took the brunt of the violence, physical side of it. And there were times where his sister would try to intervene because his dad wouldn't hurt his sister, but his dad would hurt Jason. So you're seeing this sociopath starting to be created from childhood on. Okay. I contend that Jason was created by his environment. His dad, I don't know what his childhood is. His dad could have been a legitimate psychopath, but we don't know what his childhood is. So we don't know if he was created or if he was born that way. But you're going to see, and this is absolutely not an excuse. I'm not saying, we're excusing this. We're trying to figure out how somebody can go from a Mormon missionary to popping a guy in the head 5 times without even no remorse whatsoever and taking the money and then going off and talking calmly on the phone to different people, to giving a kid a Toys R Us gift card because he was afraid he frightened him. His sister said that he spent a week at her house and they went out and had dinner and had fun and had a good time, just living the best life, having a good time. He was always the life of the party. He was fun to be around, and so she's looking back now thinking, holy crap, what the heck was that? And I'm telling you, that's the other side of the sociopath. That's the other side. He did not have empathy for the man that he took out. He didn't care about the family he destroyed. He didn't care that that man had just celebrated his first wedding anniversary, and now this woman's a widow. This man was, I believe, 24 years old. So his wife was probably around that age. Who wants to be a 23, 24-year-old widow? But we're talking about, he didn't give a crap about that. He didn't care. He wanted the money, and he was expecting, because what that usually gave out was about $100,000. He got $56,000. Okay. So we're talking about someone who is extremely dangerous because that empathy is not there. What keeps us from killing other human beings is the fact that we care. We don't want to hurt nobody. And so when you take that out of the human being, they become a monster. They become they become a little bit more dangerous version, of a wild animal, And so this is how someone can go from being a missionary, all the way over here to murdering somebody and spending 20 years almost on the FBI's top 10 list. Okay. So, Cricket, Joanne says, who sells Bones Coffee? Walmart, maybe. You give away a coupon from it for some tonight. I don't have any coupons for Bones Coffee. Sorry. Bones Coffee is sold by Bones Coffee Company. If you want to buy Bones Coffee, you can use the affiliate link, which is in the video description. So I don't have a coupon for it. They don't give me any coupons. So Bones Coffee, the only thing I'd say is you could try a sample bag. They got sample bags that are cheaper. But yeah, they have iced Bones Coffee, I believe, at Walmart, but it's loaded with sugar, and so I don't use those. Yeah. So use the affiliate link if you want coffee. Okay. Girls, do you have anything you wanted to add before we go on?
Well, he learned from his dad to be a runner.
Yeah.
That's definite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in my opinion, I think he's still out there somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't
believe so too.
Yeah, and I don't think he's getting help from anybody because he didn't need help all those years that he was scamming and conning and what he did to that poor man at the because he didn't even have to do that. He had a gun. He could have said, "Give me the bag."
Right.
He didn't
have to kill him.
Exactly.
He didn't have to get armor-piercing rounds to make sure that he killed him either. He didn't have to do any of those things, but he chose to. And so 10 years before this, his dad all of a sudden just gets in his car, drives by, checks on his daughter who's grown and married, as waves goodbye, and says, "Dad, just checking in on everybody." And then he leaves. Drives off into the sunset. Nobody's ever found him. The cops have never found him. Nobody's ever found him. Nobody knows what the heck happened to him. He's just disappeared. But strangely, 2 days later, the daughter goes over to the dad's house. I haven't heard from Dad in a while. She gets there. Well, she gets there, and her brother, David, and her brother, Jason. This is 10 years before he kills this guy. Her brothers are out there cleaning out the house. Every single stitch of everything is going in the dumpster and being burned and hauled off. And she's like, "What the heck are you doing?" And Jason and her brother turned to her and said, "Dad told us if he's ever leaves and he's not home within 48 hours to burn his stuff, haul it all off, clean out the house." And they're happy and laughing and, goofing around like it's no big deal. And she's freaking the crap out, and nobody's ever seen her dad since. And her theory is either they did something to him, so they know he's not coming back, or they know he's holed up somewhere and they know he's okay. But she never could get over it. She also said her other theory is maybe Jason hurt her dad. Maybe he got tired of the beatings. She don't know. But this is 10 years before Jason.
And they also had the theory that, maybe he's with his dad. I do not
I doubt
believe
it.
him in his no. That
I doubt it, because if you're going to live your life on the run, you don't need to be connected to anybody
exactly.
at all.
And
None.
his dad was already gone out,
Mhm.
So I'm not gonna, you you do your thing and leave me alone.
Absolutely. To me, that's the whole thing. I don't, he didn't have any love lost for his dad in the first place.
No.
His dad was out of his life and gone, whatever the reasons may be. But they said the dad may have had ties to organized crimes. There was whispers that he had made a lot of enemies over the years. So no real. There was a lot of people that wouldn't care for him to disappear. Is
He
basically
also,
what I
he
said.
also told the boys, he said, if I'm gone over 48 hours, I'm not coming back.
I don't remember that. I know they said if he's gone over 48 hours to clean out the house. But see, to me, that's also lends into what David did for Jason 10 years later.
Yes.
See, Jason didn't necessarily contact David after he found out that he was in trouble. Okay. He didn't ever contact David again because all David's phones were tapped. Okay. And he knew they would be. But David already knew, okay, Jason's in trouble. He knew where that BMW was. He knew where that BMW was stored because Jason had BMWs, he had Cadillacs, he had four-wheelers, he had fancy boats, he had all these things. He never had a job. He ran a series of cons, nonstop cons, to get all these things that he wanted. Okay. And so, but he also had storage units in different states and all this stuff where he kept his things. So he did this robbery. He had a storage unit that he had stored that silver car in. Okay. That car was too hot for him to drive. So he stored it. Well, after he gets in trouble with the FBI, it's all over the news. David gets that car out of storage because he knows where that car is. He gets that car out of storage. All this time he's telling them that he has no idea where this car is. He gets it out of storage. He goes and has it professionally detailed. And then he goes and takes it to another state where he lives and stores it not too far from his house to where he can keep an eye on it. All this time he's telling the FBI he has no idea anything about that car. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, that's like, okay, that's the same cover-up job. That's the same scam as, okay, 48 hours. If I'm not back in my house, you burn everything I have. Okay. So to me, that's still a learned behavior from childhood.
Yeah. And that's a chance that you take when you do press conferences like this. Yeah, they needed to get the bolo out. I understand that. But at the same time, that was a double sword because that allowed him to everything else covered up, and he's gone.
Well, see, that's the thing. They didn't need to get the bolo out. They had eyes on him. They knew where he was. The bolo is for, hey, I have a suspect, but we don't know where he is.
Exactly.
And, they knew exactly where he was. So that was just a flat out screw up. And there's no way to soften that. They screwed up because the FBI had been tracking him. They knew exactly where he was. They knew he was held up in his sister's house, even though she had just moved there. They knew exactly where he was and where to get him. But before they could go get him, the local police department were bound and determined they were going to put out a freaking press release. And they got their way, and it screwed this up. And 20 years later, this family doesn't have justice because they were so dang determined to put it out on the news.
Yep. And they would have gotten him.
They already had him. That's the thing. They had eyes on him.
Yeah. But so getting that picture out, that was stupid.
It was.
Gave him.
It was.
And his brother knew exactly what to do. And
his brother knew exactly what to do. Now, his brother ended up going to jail and all this for aiding and abetting, and hindering an investigation and lying to the FBI. And he ended up going to jail. I don't know what all he got in trouble for, or if he's still in jail or anything now. I do know that the sister went, after all this happened, she went and changed all of her phone numbers because she's like, she said, it's my brother, and I would like to think that I do the right thing, and I am planning on doing the right thing. If he calls me, and I would hang up and call the FBI, she said, but that's a situation I don't want to put myself in. And so she went and changed all of her numbers so Derek or Jason can't get a hold of her. She's like, I don't want him calling me. You know, he destroyed her life, and he destroyed her son's life. And she don't, you know, she's like, there's still part of me. And you know, you still have a memory from childhood of your siblings, that innocent stage that you love, and that fantasy you'd like to keep a hold of. That part you still love. And it doesn't matter what they do as an adult. There's a piece of fantasy that you still love, you know. And so she has to fight that, because the Jason she grew up loving, her best friend, that guy's not the same guy anymore, you know. And so it's terrible.
Yeah, she is a victim in all of this too.
She is. April says, so nothing was ever said about anything such as personal items, suitcases, or certain clothing missing. So basically what he did was he sent 2 PO boxes. Now, see, this is another little con, a little con that him and his brother had. They had a PO box that they shared randomly in an odd place. So when they want to send somebody something on the run, they sent it to that PO box. So David got 2 packages from his brother on the run. One of them had random clothing. It had random walkie-talkies, just random things, some different things. And then one of them, the second package they got, actually had a gun, a 9mm gun that he had stolen from his brother when he was there. He's like, oh, hey, I'm going to come hang out with you for a while. Stole his brother's 9mm gun. And he's like, oh, here, you can have this back. You know, and then there was lots of home videos and pictures of saying, oh, look at me, remember me. It was almost like a box of memories. Say, here, take this and remember me by. It was
it was like this is the end of Jason as you know him.
This is like this is the memory box. You know, you keep, you know, stashes of little things, little knick-knacky things that remind you of whatever. You know, it's a memory box. Here's a box of what I used to be. Remember me this way, you know. And so some people say, well, maybe he committed suicide after sending that. I don't think so. I don't think so, because I feel like he had that level of arrogance. See, that kind of psychosis comes with an arrogance, that they are the center of the world. They are the most important in the world. They're not going to take themselves out because they're better than everybody else. They are.
And also, he speaks fluent French. He speaks fluent Spanish.
He's extremely educated. He's extremely educated.
So he could be anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. And they think probably a French-speaking country, and they think that maybe he escaped Canada. I don't think so. I think, they chased him to the southern border, and then he made a U-turn and headed straight to Portland and left his vehicle there. I don't think I have 2 theories. He either went back down south, or he's right here, still here, living his life, doing his own thing, change his appearance, and just stay here. Okay. Yeah. To me,
and that wouldn't be the first time that happened. There was a guy on the run. They're looking, you're thinking he went out of the country, he was still in New York. He didn't go nowhere. Yeah. He just made it look like.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, if you happen to see him, there's a $200,000 reward. So
Tammy, let's go drive the roads. Let's go drive some roads. Yeah. Cricket, you look up where you're at. We'll look down here. See if we can get some cash. You know, I could use some cash. I don't want to kill nobody for the cash, but hey, I'll find somebody for the FBI for cash. So this says, do you think a person makes that one connection that they need, like on the run? No. See, here's the thing. A lot of people cannot survive on the run. They make a mistake quickly because they still have that empathetic feeling of connection to other human beings. But when you get a psychopath or a sociopath, they don't have that. Okay. They don't have that connection to another human being. They don't need anyone. Okay. And so they don't make mistakes as easy or as fast, as quickly as somebody who feels like they still need that connection with that one special person. And so when you get a psychopath or a sociopath on the run, they make the best fugitives. Now, me, I'm thinking he's got all these little con games of, I'm going to do this, and we're going to switch this around. We're going to throw this. I'm thinking, why don't you send your car to the north border while you're crossing the southern one? So I'm like, forget Canada. Go down south, see what you see.
Mhm.
I think he's on a beach somewhere. I think he's conning whoever. He's conning more money. He's conning more money as, however he gets along, he's going to con his way and just keep making money off of somebody. And he's probably sitting on a beach somewhere, laughing this all off while
Yeah.
everybody that he's left behind is suffering, because his sister suffers, his nephew suffers, the whole family of the man he killed suffers. And so to me, I feel like he's either here and changed his appearance, or he's off on a beach somewhere just laughing it off. Now let's jump in real quick because we're over an hour now. Let's jump in real quick, and I want to people look at this and you think, holy crap, how can he be taken off of the FBI's most wanted list if he's so dangerous? Normally the only way you get off the FBI list is you're dead or you're incarcerated. Okay. But he's almost outlived his FBI most wanted list. You're like, how does this happen? Well, I want you to read. It says he no longer meets the qualifications. For one, you need to realize it's been 20 years. And as far as they can tell, he hasn't done this again. So that automatically kind of de-escalates his case just a tiny bit. Is he capable? Absolutely. If he runs out of money and gets frustrated again, absolutely. If he gets on drugs again, absolutely. He could absolutely do this. But he hasn't for 20 years as far as they can tell. So that kind of de-escalates his total, his case. Now, the purpose of the FBI's top 10 list it's a marketing machine, kind of like what I try to do. I raise publicity about obscure cases. The FBI's top 10 most wanted list is that on steroids. Okay. The list is just a publicity campaign. It's a program to get more publicity about a case that is not getting enough publicity. It also gives it a higher priority. So when they reach an FBI agent overseas in some different country, they say this is a top 10. That means that person over there knows that this is a high priority, and they put it high priority on their list. So all that does is just elevates the priority of the case and pushes out more publicity. Okay. So here's the thing. There's people that become a higher priority because they're a bigger danger to society. But then you also find out that I'm looking for the criteria. Okay. I'm going to read you the criteria on how the decision is made if you're added to this list. It says, first, the individual must have a lengthy record of committing serious crimes or is particularly dangerous menace to the society. Okay. Second, it must be believed that nationwide publicity afforded by this program can be of assistance to apprehending the fugitive, who in turn should not already be notorious due to other publicity. Okay. So that tells you that they're going to be added if the FBI truly believes that he is a serious danger to society and that it needs publicity, and this case can bring in the leads it needs. Now, he's been on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. He has brought in more leads than every other person on the top 10 list that's ever been listed. And yet every lead has been completely checked out, and none of them have even been close to even being there. They do not have, now listen to this. This is amazing. They do not have one. They have zero. They have zero actual verified sightings of this man. And they have had thousands and thousands of leads come in from this program of him being on the top 10. They've had thousands and thousands of leads, and zero of them have been verified sightings. So this is not an effective tool to get this guy, is what they're saying. Okay, it's been 20 years. He's slightly less dangerous. And the best tool we have isn't doing the job. So we have people that are more dangerous that we think this tool can work. So instead of hogging up the spot, they are giving that spot to someone else that they think this big publicity marketing machine called the FBI Top 10 Most Wanted, that is a marketing machine. They're thinking, okay, this marketing machine can be used to help other cases, and it's not working on this case. So is he de-escalated? No. He is still wanted for everything he was wanted before. Is he still priority? Absolutely. Is he still getting all the attention? Is he still bringing in leads? Absolutely. They just took him off the top 10 because that's a tool of the FBI, and that tool is not working in this case. So does that make sense?
Yeah. April, even if he did change his MO, then there would be clues to they'd have to investigate that crime.
Well, see,
if he changed his name,
if he changed his face, if he changed his fingerprints, if he changed everything, you can't change your DNA. They have a DNA profile from all of his family. So they have taken all of his family's DNA and made a familial DNA profile. So he can change everything he wants. My thought on it is he's too smart to do it again. He's not going to do it again because he knows that he almost got caught. He is not going to do it again. He may do, he's going to do cons, he's going to steal, he's going to do everything, but he's not going to do that again because he got too close to being caught. And he's too smart, he's not going to do it again. They are going to catch him because somebody is going to figure out who he really is. But he's not, I believe, just from watching and studying these things and other psychopathic killers, he gets a thrill being a fugitive. His sister said that all of that stuff it gives him a thrill and gives him a high. But he's too smart to do it again. He's not going to do it again. He's going to lay low till the day he dies, and he's going to get by with it unless somebody close to him figures out who he is. And that's the way this one's going to come out. If I was a gambling person, I would bet on that. Today's episode is brought to you by Bones Coffee Company. You can forget about boring coffee when you drink Bones Coffee. Not only do they offer a variety of flavors such as strawberry cheesecake and maple bacon, they are a family-owned company that puts great detail not only in their coffee, but in the artwork that comes on each individual bag. Bones Coffee has a coffee club that will deliver your favorite coffee to your door every month. If that wasn't enough, they also have some amazing swag to offer. Check out Bones Coffee Company today. I'll have my affiliate links in the show notes for you.